Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast. I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Frank Felker of Radio Free Enterprise. Frank, it's awesome having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Gresham, and it's great to reconnect with you.
Definitely always a pleasure to learn and hear from you because you do so many phenomenal things. So definitely a pleasure to reconnect. And before we jumped into the interview, I want to read a little bit more about Frank so you'd hear about some of these awesome things that he's doing. And Frank is a best-selling author and host of Radio Free Enterprise, and he has more than 40 years experience starting, running, and helping small businesses. Today's focus is entrepreneurial education. Over 25,000 entrepreneurs from 170 countries have enrolled in his online business courses, and he has taught thousands more at live events across the United States, in Germany, Brazil, and the United Kingdom. His book, Unlocking the M Cube: How to Master the Six Sides of Business Success, makes clear on why only a small number of business owners thrive and succeed while the vast majority struggle and fail. What every business owner knows needs to know and needs to do to create the entrepreneurial life of their dreams. Frank, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, let's do it then. So, to kind of kick everything off, I wanted to rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started, what I call your CEO story.
Well, my story goes so far back. It's funny, Gresham. At one point in my quote career, I was so young that nobody would take me seriously. I first got involved with small business in 1974. I was 15 years old, and my mother opened a copy shop, print shop type place. And in any event, nobody would pay any attention to me or take any of my ideas seriously because I was so young. Now I have the exact opposite problem that people don't take me seriously because I'm so old. And I find it humorous. But one thing that I've learned is that no matter what somebody appears like on their exterior, it's worth giving them a listen. Any person you ever meet can teach you something about something. So don't turn away from somebody no matter how their appearance strikes you.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. I appreciate you for sharing that. I just call it a little more seasoned over here than anything else, but it's great because I think we all have our zone of genius thing we can kind of pull upon to kind of learn from each other.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, what led you to kind of write your book and do everything you're doing with Radio Free Enterprise?
Yeah, as I say, my mother started this little copy shop. I was just a teenager. Neither one of us knew anything about business. And we really struggled for about 10 years, really struggled. And I say in my book, Unlocking the M Cube, that we weren't just broke, we were poor. And I'm not really sure how she got by, how she paid the mortgage and put food on the table. I really don't know. I was young, and teenage boys are not always the most observant people who really care about what's going on. But what I did care about was more than us being financially unsuccessful. I hated the fact of being stupid about business. Now, we were actually ignorant of business, but I felt stupid and I didn't like it. And so I started at a very early age to observe what is the difference between the small fraction of business owners who thrive and succeed and the vast majority who struggle and fail. And I've literally made it my life's mission, and it's encapsulated in that book. The M Cube is six M's, things like marketing, money, management. And then my podcast, Radio Free Enterprise, every interview I do is in alignment with one of those M's, and helps to try to elucidate the topic for my audience, which, like yours, is business owners.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. I love, alignment and being able to kind of to have that with everything that you do. But I love even more that why, that mission piece that you spoke to, because I
Yeah.
think so many businesses struggle and they're not sure of why they're doing it. So I love that you're providing that information, that expertise, and that knowledge so that we can, increase the likelihood of being successful.
Well, and mission, why you're in business is actually M1 of the M Cube. And it's critical because you don't need it to succeed in the short term. Really, the most critical short term M is marketing. But for the long term, if you really don't know what your mission is or why you're doing this, every business owner knows that there are a lot of struggles and a lot of difficult times and sleepless nights. And if you don't have a strong why to hold on to, you're probably going to give up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the roller coaster ride of running a business is such that you need to have that North Star, that why, that
Mm.
mission, as you said so well, or you'll just kind of fly off the ups and downs on the roller coaster.
Yeah. And different people have different whys. Some people, they
Mhm.
want to make a lot of money. They might express it differently and say they want to be financially secure or financially independent. They want time freedom that they couldn't have working a normal job. Some people have a big idea that they're looking to express and bring to the world, somebody like an Elon Musk. Other people, their why, and this is not a very healthy one, but it can carry you through, is to prove themselves to someone, like their father or their ex boss or their ex wife for that matter. Um, Different people have different whys, but when I hear somebody say, "Oh, it just seemed like a good idea," that's not a good why.
Mhm.
And I knew a couple who opened a restaurant in Springfield, Virginia. And the reason why they did it was because they loved that restaurant and met at that same branded restaurant when they were in college in Georgia. And so they just thought it would be a great idea to have one of those restaurants of their own. And I estimate they lost somewhere between 600,000 and $1 million in less than a year due to the failure of that restaurant to take hold. So it's serious, serious business, and you need to have a serious why.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. And of course, a lot of the other M's, as you mentioned as well, too, because I think you can't always guarantee success, but as you
No.
talked about the ignorance and, and the knowledge that we can possess, I think if you have more of that information, which is why I love everything that you do, it helps to increase your likelihood of being successful and understand absolutely what you're ultimately doing. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about the other M's. I know we touched on some of them. Could you take us through
Hmm.
a lot more of those and how those manifest themselves in Radio Free Enterprise?
Yeah, I'll try to do it as quickly as I can. The second M is marketing. And I really struggled because I have seen marketing cause people to succeed, even if they weren't quite sure what their mission was.
Right.
But if you don't understand marketing and you don't implement marketing, I found that's the number one differentiator between success and failure is successful companies, business owners understand and implement marketing on a daily basis. And people who fail generally do not. So
Mhm,
that also includes that horrible word sales.
mhm,
uh, I say that for most small business owners, marketing is a mystery and sales is a dirty word. But I put marketing ahead of everything, including making the hamburgers or cutting the hair or whatever you do, because if you can't sell it, nothing else matters. Seeing people succeed with no money and no nothing, but they knew how to sell and they generated revenue. So the next one then is money. You need to have some kind of money. Generally, you're going to have to eat yourself. So you need to at least have enough money to provide for yourself while you're starting up and trying to get to cash flow positive. But in addition to money itself, you need to understand money. Most people, again, do not understand money at all. I highly recommend something called color accounting. You can find it at coloraccounting.com. If you can't, if you can't read, you're illiterate. If you can't read your financial statements, you are accounting illiterate. And I assure you, Gresham, I'm sure you know, successful people know their numbers. They can read their financial statements. Let's see, we're up to three. Number four is machine, which is actual production operations. That's flipping the burgers, cutting the hair, mowing the yards, writing the code, whatever it is you do. But that comes in number four because you don't, if you've got great marketing, even a substandard product can succeed, as evidenced by Windows 3.2 kicking the butt of the Macintosh operating system way back in the day, even though it wasn't even close which one was best. Microsoft ended up with a 97% market share because of superior marketing, not because of a superior product. Nonetheless, for long-term success, you should be good at what you do. The fifth M is management of people. And again, I put it way at the end because I don't think you should hire anybody until you've proven that people are buying what you're selling, you know how to make the hamburgers, et cetera, et cetera. Because it's a compact, it's a trust you take with the person you hire that they do this for you, they work for you, and you will pay them. Well, things happen where you can't make payroll. but they trust you to pay them. They need that money. It's people enter into hiring people too lightly. And this is another M you must master. The final M is minutia, which has to do with should I be an LLC or an S Corp? And do I have the right kind of insurance and business license and et cetera, et cetera. Those are important. I don't want to discount them, but they will not help you succeed. If you are spending all your time with busy work of the minutia as sort of a defense mechanism to keep you from going out and talk to people to sell
Mhm.
things, that's what a lot of people do, and that causes failure. And I often find that that's what people put first is the minutia, and it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I appreciate you so much for going through each of those, different M's and how they can impact the business. And even it sounds like the priorities by which people sometimes will put the bottom of the list, so to speak, above, the first or the third, and understanding how that process goes is absolutely huge, it sounds.
It is. It is. Most people start with minutia, then they go to machine. They start cutting hair,
Mhm.
they start doing whatever. But they don't, if there's no heads to cut and there's no sandwiches that people eat, I think it was Henry Ford said, if you don't have customers, you don't have a business, you have a hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let me ask you this. What would you consider to be what I call like your secret sauce, which is could be for yourself personally or the business or a combination of both or everything that you do? What do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Well, I would, number one thing is being observant. I really pay attention, not as much to what people say, but to what they do.
Mhm.
People will tell you anything and they'll even tell themselves lies about what's important to them. But if you watch what they do repeatedly, especially, you'll know that's what they enjoy or feel comfortable with, or that's what's in their heart. And so, as I observed successful business owners, I saw them doing things, employing behaviors, leadership oriented behaviors that made them stand apart from their competition and from their peers in other industries in the same city. So, I would say observation, being observant and marking down what you observe.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. I appreciate you for being able to do that, and I think too, you know, people think that communication is all about talking and speaking, but a lot of it, as you said, is being able to observe, to listen, and to kind of translate that information into like the M cube, as you talked about, and all those different aspects that business owners may not necessarily understand and how to run a successful business.
Hmm. Listening is right.
Mm,
It's funny that few people really listen, and one of the things that I've learned is that if you will actually actively listen to someone, just because you can hear doesn't mean you're listening. They will tell you things that will even surprise them, because
right.
very few times in life do we have the opportunity to actually be heard at a
Mhm.
deep level. And if you'll give someone that opportunity, they'll tell you whatever you'd like to know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the best gifts that you can have is to be
Mm,
heard, to be understand and appreciated. And I think that
yeah.
once you're able to kind of tap into that, then it provides a loads amount of opportunity, even learning lessons as we're listening to today. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit. And I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could
Mhm.
be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
I really I do a lot of reading. I'm just finishing now the book Liftoff, which is a story about SpaceX. And my goodness, we look at Elon Musk right now and think, well, that guy's so smug, that guy's so rich, that guy's so brilliant. Tell you what, that guy is tough. He has seen
Mhm.
some tough times in the not so distant past. But in any event, I'm obviously very charmed with that book. But a book I would recommend is called The War of Art. Now, we've all heard of the book, The Art of War. This is not the same book. This is The War of Art. And it has to do with being creative and how difficult it can be for someone who's an entrepreneur or an artist or a writer. And what this guy pins it down to is it's not the writing that's difficult, it's the sitting down to write. And what he means is doing it, getting started. Once you get started, there's a real momentum to activity and energy. And he refers to the thing that keeps us from getting started as resistance with a capital R. And he refers to it as if it were a being. And he has a great solution for confronting resistance and being more productive.
Nice. I appreciate both of those hacks. And I think so many times you hear about the true people that are able to be successful, sometimes have a high degree of grit, which it kind of sounds like you were kind of referring to, and Elon Musk has,
Hmm.
in order to be successful. But I also love too that you talk about the executing, because you can, learn about grit as much as possible. You can learn about all different aspects of business, but actually executing and putting the paper to the pen to the paper, so to speak, is actually where things start to take another level.
I know you know that.
Yes. Nice. And then so I wanted to ask you for what I call now a CEO nugget. So this could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Sure. And this kind of fits all of those things. In the fifth M of management, I've created an online course, one of the courses you mentioned earlier. It's called How to Hire and Keep Great People. And in there is a nugget that get a lot of people go, or aha kind of moment, which is never be afraid to hire people who are smarter than you are or who are better at a given task than you are. Because you don't want people whose only benefit to you is that they always tell you how right you are. That's the sign of a poor manager that surrounds themselves with yes men. You want people that have a high level of energy, integrity, ethics, and they're skilled at what they do. And don't be intimidated by them. See them as your partner in this business, helping you get what you want. And in turn, as I say in the course, you need to help them with what they're looking to get, both in your job, but also in the rest of their life.
Yeah, and I think that taps into, like, even as we were talking about looking at businesses from a mission, or mission focus, also within the people that are on the team as well too, understanding what's a win for them, so that you can try to create. It sounds
Right.
like those win-win opportunities.
What does success look like? This is what success will look like for you in this position. If you do this, this, and this, you are doing your job, and I'm going to be most pleased, and you will be too as you develop both your skills and your income level here.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to kind of tie into that, and how that flows into those six M's is absolutely huge. And knowing how to do that, but also understanding how to attract those right people into the organization. And so I wanted to ask you now my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're
Hmm.
open to different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So, Frank, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Yeah, I love that question too. And I have listened to quite a number of your interviews, and you get some great answers from people. I like the chief energy officer uh, answer. I don't know if you know this question, but at one time in my career, I was actually CEO of a public company.
I
And
didn't.
that's what the real CEO is. I mean, it was a small company and it wasn't anything huge. We were publicly traded through what's called a reverse merger, but there was a tremendous amount of responsibility and accountability and that kind of thing that comes with being a public company. And but yet still, as a now I'm a solopreneur, you're still CEO of your own ship. And I would say to me, the number one thing that CEO means is you take total responsibility for results. No matter what happens outside that you couldn't control, may not have been your fault, but it's still your responsibility to deal with it, to deliver the way that you said you would for your client, to do whatever it was commitment that you made. You're fully responsible. And once you come to that place in your mind and in your heart, you're pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love those words that you said, commitment and responsibility, because I think when you have that title or the seat or whatever we might call it, whether it be solopreneur, CEO, entrepreneur, business, or whatever that might be, you have a mission and a vision that you have to execute on. And when you start to get that in alignment and understand not just the effect that you're having on yourself, but also all the people around you, that's when things go to an entirely different level.
Yeah. I just as a quick aside, the first
Mhm.
time I ever sat at a corporate board meeting, I was chairman of the board. So that was a trial by fire right there, I can tell you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You got to learn on the job, so to speak, it sounds
Oh,
like.
I don't want to go back there, please.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Frank, truly appreciate your time. Appreciate that definition. Of course, what I want to do is just pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you, find out about the book, the podcast, all the awesome things that you're working on.
I appreciate that, Gresham. Well, I would encourage you to tune in to Radio Free Enterprise. It's radiofreeenterprise.com. You also can find it, podcasting platforms, YouTube, Facebook, etc. But in order to connect you with the book, go to frankfelker.com and you get a free copy of the PDF edition of the book, of the first edition. I'm putting out a second edition sometime soon. Not sure exactly when that's going to be done, but I recommend that you go there and get the book and read it for yourself. You can read it in about 20 minutes. It's a very quick read. And the promise that I make to you is it's likely that you will never look at your business the same way again after you've read that short book. So take me up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to make it even easier, we will have the links and information in the show notes. But I appreciate you so much for taking time out, of course, today, Frank. But I appreciate you so much for writing the book and all the great work that you do and all the courses and all those things to help people and arm people with that success. Because I think I use the word holistic a lot when talking about business, but understanding what that holistic part is, those 6 M's that you laid out, is so huge to try to guarantee that or increase the likelihood that businesses can be successful. So appreciate you again, my friend, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thanks so much for having me, Gresham. I really enjoyed it.